someone who you'll know at the end of this lecture, he just makes my spirit shine, is about the way I want to say it. I see him or I see his name, and I immediately think of the better side of human beings. Not only Paul himself, but the people who helped him along his way. We are going to first show you a video that was made of Paul's life, and then he'll come and talk a bit. And please, have your questions ready, because he loves it when he gets questions. And if he doesn't get questions, I flip. Okay?
Many of my fellow children, many did not escape and were brutally put to death or tortured. It is beyond imagination. I know that it happened. I know that I was involved in it. I know that I had to go into hiding to escape. I prayed very hard for my parents, my mother and my father, the teachers and the other children. I prayed that none of us would have to die or be hurt before it was over.
World War II and Europe was filled with rage and madness and killing. But in the Ardennes forest of Belgium, there was a place of refuge. Tucked away in the small village of Gemwanda was the children's home of Queen Elizabeth. Here, sanctuary was offered to 83 Jewish boys. Sanctuary from the persecution of Adolf Hitler's Nazi Germany and the evil of the final solution. Four decades later, in the spring of this year, the children returned to a reunion. Men in midlife with their families and friends to greet and embrace each other and the people who were their saviors. This is the story of one of the children who was saved, Paul Schwarzbart of San Rafael, California. Teacher, father, Jew, survivor. All that he is was shaped by what happened 50 years ago to a frightened little boy when hell opened up and claimed him. March 13th, 1938, Vienna, once the capital of an empire of kings and queens. This historic city is now the center of the Anschluss, the Nazi annexation of Austria, and where Adolf Hitler returns in triumph to the land of his birth. It was here as a young man that he suffered humiliation and failure as a would-be artist, and where he began to nurse his hatred for the Jews. It is also 1 month before the 5th birthday of Paul Schwarzbart, the only child of Friedrich and Sarah Schwarzbart. Austria is the land of their birth and a Jewish family heritage which dates to the 1700s. They have prospered in a country where 200,000 Jews not only made their home, but helped to define the culture. The Schwarzbart family is as much Austrian as it was Jewish. Both of Paul's grandfathers died fighting for Austria in World War I. Now, if Hitler can have his way, the 1,000-year tradition of Austria's Jews is to be obliterated from history, from memory.
One morning, my parents were standing out the window looking rather shook up, and I remember going to the window, looking out and seeing a strange, huge flag, a red flag with a white circle and a strange-looking cross in the middle. So overnight, the Austrian flag had been taken down and the Nazi German flag had been put up with a swastika. And this is how quickly it happened.
In Austria's new Nazi regime, the Jew is an enemy of the state. Paul's father had his job taken away, and the family apartment was confiscated and given to a Nazi family. Austria, the land of Strauss and the wolves, is now a land of violence and intimidation, even for children.
Children I'd grown up with, and good friends, all of a sudden were wearing the button with the swastika and their lapels and telling me, dirty little Jew, to get off the sidewalk and walk in the gutter where I belonged.
The sound of breaking glass gave the name to the night of November 9th and 10th, 1938, Crystal Night, a rampage of terror and destruction directed against the Jews in every corner of Germany and Austria. The Nazi brown shirts were avenging the death of a German diplomat killed by a Jew. When the rampage had ended, the cold November sun revealed over 7,000 Jewish homes and businesses plundered, 300 synagogues put to the torch, close to 100 Jews killed, and 20,000 arrested and deported to concentration camps. In the last days of 1938, as many Jews before them were forced to do, the Schwarzbarts and other family relatives fled their homes, leaving behind everything they once cherished. They left Austria forever.
You're Albanese. Oh, I knew that. The old guard, the new wave. To tell you about another down-to-earth benefit from space research. I can't believe these glasses for the deaf. A tiny microphone on the frame connects to a portable computer which converts spoken words into visual cues that appear right on the lens of the glasses. Huh, the eye's doing what the ears can't. Incredible. Space technology. This is what's in it for you.
Volunteer spirit is alive and growing in the Bay Area. People helping people. Opening up the door. That's what a friend is for. At Channel 4 for a long time now, we've thrown our heart and soul and resources behind those who care. We're doing our best to bring together those who want to help with those who need help. Healing for growing. After all, that's what a friend is for.
In late winter of 1938, the Schwarzbart smuggled themselves out of Austria through Germany and into Belgium. They are in search of visas for the United States. They find a small apartment in Brussels. It is a Jewish neighborhood. Life is hard.
I remember next door there was a woman who sold, down the road next door, she sold coal and vegetables. And occasionally she would sell my mother some rutabaga or potatoes or sometimes the leftovers from it, whatever my mother could afford to pay for it. She always managed to cook it. I have disliked rutabaga ever since. I don't think I want to look another one in the face. But it kept us alive.
Again and again, Paul's father calls on the American embassy, but the visas never seem to come. Refugees are not able to obtain work permits, but Paul's mother finds illegal work as a housekeeper. As a result, Paul and his father spend many days together. Neither would know just how precious their time together would be. World War II begins in September of 1939. Poland is invaded, and as Hitler's armies rage on, the young boy and his parents in Brussels try as best they can to lead normal lives. The closeness between a father and son grows stronger.
I remember an enormous love for me, and Jack returned. I remember an enormous love for my mother, which set a marvelous example for me both as husband and father. And this is really what is foremost in my memory.
Now, almost a half-century later, in the same Brussels neighborhood, other memories of a past filled with joy and regret are resurrected. The family home in the corner apartment building. Paul, now 55, has not entered this place since his childhood days.
The little apartment that we rented in 39, it was a walk-up on the 3rd floor. I feel like an intruder, you know. Okay, here's the 3rd floor. This was it. Looks unoccupied. This was our kitchen. This was our bedroom. It looks unoccupied. Looks like a storage space. Is that really how small it was? This door that either did not exist, don't remember. If it did exist, there was not one that opened, because this is all there was. My bed was here. There was a stove here. My parents, my mother's bed was right here. I always thought it was a large room. It's not a large room. This was our little kitchen. My God, it's small. Stove stood right here. There was, of course, no sink, no water connection. We had to get in the toilet to get the water. There was a large table there. My mother had made curtains for it, so that was a storage space underneath. There were no cupboards or any sort. And that's all. That was the kitchen. Good times up here. Yeah. Wonderful family time up here. I never knew it was small, that we were poor or anything like that. Never really felt that. Good times. Our love. You sure don't need much to be happy.
In the same September month of the Nazi blitzkrieg into Poland, Paul Schwarzbart begins the 1st grade. He is 6 years old.
This is the school where I met Joseph Campé, wonderful man, my first year teacher. He really taught me French. And then when the Germans said that Jews could no longer go to school, he retired. He would not, if he couldn't teach everyone, he wouldn't teach. Every morning on his way to school, he would drop off a pack of sandwiches for me at the house. So I would eat lunch. And so I would eat. And he did that every day. Just a stranger, my teacher. This was a good place. Still looks like a good place. Kids learning. The journey in time, I think, is the most difficult one to make. It's also the most meaningful one.
Friday, May the 10th, 1940. The German armies invade Holland, Luxembourg, and Belgium. Disregarding the 3-year-old pact of neutrality, Hitler's swift attacking infantry and panzer divisions overwhelmed the Belgians. On the same day their country is invaded, Belgian authorities begin a roundup of German-speaking refugees. They are seen as potential spies, possible Nazi collaborators. Tragically ironic, most are Jews running from the Nazis. In a roundup which lasts 3 days, upwards of 10,000 are seized. Paul's father is among them.
Well, we were on the 3rd floor in our bedroom, and someone knocked at the door, and there was uniformed Belgian police with no white helmets and civilian. And they had papers, and they asked for Fried and Schwarzbart, and they said that because of the war situation, he, being Austrian, he had to accompany them. It was very simple. It was not unfriendly. It was very matter of fact. And my mother was beside herself. I didn't know what to do. And they said that we could come down to the police station and bring some things to him. And off they went. This is what they brought the people on the 10th of May, the Germans, the Austrians, all the people of German origin, most of whom were Jews, but they didn't care. They stuck them in here, and then they were locked up in this tiny little courtyard, bunches at a time. I still see them all standing there, huddled together. Everybody trying to be optimistic and wishing their wives or whomever, well, they'd be all right. And so my mother and I brought a bundle of clothes here, got it through the grill work, and this is the last place I saw my father. Yeah, right behind us here, just sticking his hand out, reaching for us. Dismal place. It's dismal then, it's even worse now. He told me to take good care of my mother, that he would be back, but that I was a man of the family now, that I had to take care of Mutti. And I always knew that this was the last time.
As a doctor, I want all Medicare beneficiaries to know you have a choice of Medicare health plans. The private health plan option lets you choose health maintenance organizations or similar plans. Or you can choose to stay with the traditional Medicare. Each system offers high-quality care. Medicare's free booklet helps you compare and choose what's best for you. For more information, write Options, Care of Medicare, Baltimore, Maryland, 21207.
The next time you're sitting around with some friends, try this. Raise your glass and say, to freedom.
Try it. You may feel slightly self-conscious, but after all, no harm can come, can it?
2 students in Portugal were sentenced to 7 years imprisonment for doing just that. Toasting to freedom.
That incident on May 28, 1961, sparked the creation of Amnesty International.
Since then, we have intervened on behalf of tens of thousands of prisoners of conscience.
But today, in over 50 countries, you can still be put in prison just for saying what you believe.
In over 60 countries, torture is still systematically used.
In over 100 countries, you can still be put to death, even for political offenses not involving violence.
How effective are we? A former official from El Salvador testified.
If there's an appeal from some foreign government or Amnesty International, then they will live. Otherwise, they are dead.
Join us to freedom.
The very day of his father's arrest, on the way home from their goodbye, Paul and his mother meet a woman whose family would become their good Samaritan.
My mother went into a Red Cross station to find out if there was anything else we could do for my father, if we could find out where he was being sent and so forth. And as fate will have it, we spoke to a woman named Andre Extine. And I think she just reacted to the way my mother and I looked. And took pity on us, and as a human being in need of solace and help, and she willingly extended her hand.
Andre Eckstein, realizing the Schwarzbarts are alone and destitute, offers Paul's mother a job working in the Eckstein home, taking care of their children. The husband, George, is an architect. For the next 3 years, Paul spends a great deal of time in their house, and a relationship develops into something much deeper.
They were not Jews, these people were not Jews, which allowed them a certain amount of freedom that we didn't have, but also linked them very closely with us, and they would have certainly shared our fate if anything had happened to us.
Belgium surrenders 3 weeks after the Nazi invasion, and life for the country's 90,000 Jews becomes even more uncertain and dangerous. In the apartment next to the Schwarzbarts lives a woman who entertains the troops.
Which in this case meant Germans and even SS in their black uniforms, and which scared my mother very, very much, and yet we lived with it. I remember sometimes at night, she would, the walls were rather thin, and she would put her hands over my ears to protect my innocence.
Then come the letters written by Paul's father. He is in the mountains of southwest France at labor camps where the Belgian authorities have sent him.
Darling, give special kisses to my child.
The first letter is dated June 26, 1940, soon after France falls to the Germans. More letters follow, and the family writes back. The Germans censor the letters, but let them go through as proof of their so-called humanity. What survives are Friedrich Schwarzbart's expressions of hope and love for his family. This is what he writes Paul.
You are my everything, my sunshine, as well as your mother's and the whole family's. I like to hold you fast, to love you. Tell jokes with you. But also, unfortunately, that is not possible, because I'm here. But your pictures I carry in my heart, and my thoughts are ever with you.
And there are words of love from husband to wife, words of love between a man and a woman.
It's a poem you wrote my mother on the occasion of their 10th wedding anniversary, October 25th, 1941, around the woods and meadows, and lush green mountains blooming in the sunlight, everything so peaceful, and then God's wonder. And yet, much, much more beautiful than all of this are you. I should so much like to love you, kiss your eyes, your hands, your mouth so red, and find it so bitter to have to miss
the summer of 1942, the Nazis are after every Jew in Belgium. At first, a deportation quota of 10,000 is established. Jews are told they are needed for work in the East. But then come the street arrests and roundups. Sent to transit camps, the Jews are often beaten and tortured. Finally, the train ride to Auschwitz. The first group of Jews leaves on September 2nd. Within a month, all 10,000 are deported. For 2 years, Paul's father suffers in the labor camps of France, where 3,000 prisoners die from brutality, starvation, and disease. Stopping short of extermination, the cruelty of the collaborating Vichy government comes close to that of the Nazis. In August of 1942, even that fragile distinction ends. At Germany's demand, the French hand over the remaining prisoners for deportation to the death camps in the East.
August 24th, 1942. Dearest city, dearest Monica, I found myself going through the train station in Lyon and take the opportunity to send you my warmest greetings and kisses and utmost love. At the first possibility, I shall immediately write again. Stay in good health. God will help. With all my love, your Papa Fritz.
Paul's father never writes again. His 99th letter is his last. There are no letters from his next destination, Gross Rosen, or the one after that, Buchenwald.
My mother often wondered why nothing happened to us, but I think that she simply accepted it. That's really how life was in those days. The person next to you was arrested and you kept on walking. Someone on the street was shot and you were not. And one was just grateful to be alive no matter how tough it was. And of course it started to get tough really in 42 and 43, and that's when the underground approached my mother and asked her whether she wanted to save my life, which is an interesting question to ask her about it. And if she did want to save my life, she'd have to simply give me up.
Paul's mother, now seeing the Nazis are rounding up old people and children, talks to the ex-teens about the choice she must make. When the stranger from the underground returns that night, she has her answer.
When she was handed that lifeline for me, I think she grabbed it. It seems to me that she had been probably agonizing over the problem of finding a solution of what to do with me, how to save me.
Paul is to leave this night. The ex-teens offered him the use of their family name. The destination is secret. Not even his mother is told.
She got a bundle of clothes together for me. Some good shoes and some more underwear. And the man came and she said yes. And we kissed goodbye. It wasn't quite so simple, but... And off I went into the night with this man holding me by the hand. And he took me to the train station. In Luxembourg, and he put me in a train, told me where I was going, and told me to take care of myself, which meant, remember, you're not Jewish. And then he walked away and I never saw him again. And a few hours later I ended up in India then, a little village of Jammunya.
It is May 13th, 1943. Paul Schwarzbart, now Paul Epstein, does not know whether he will ever see his mother again. He is 10 years old.
And now that I am a father, I'm beginning to understand what she must have gone through to say yes to letting her son walk away in the night, not knowing whether she would ever see him again. It must have torn her heart out.
Gotta go, Dad.
When a loved one has to be left at home without care,
Bye, Grandpa.
life becomes empty.
Love you, Pop.
At Adult Day Health Centers, medical care is just the beginning. We also offer personalized therapy, and each weekday, we brighten lives with the best medicine of all, the joy of being with friends. If you know someone who can help, call us today. Brighten someone's life.
Do you think you could be a guide dog without going upstairs?
Moselle Zimmer volunteers by helping puppies become guide dogs for the blind.
It really doesn't take much to make a difference. Just a few hours of your time can mean so much. If you want to show your care, become a volunteer and find out how good it feels. Call your local volunteer center at 800-CARE-123. That's what a friend is for.
Tom Waddell competed in the 1968 Mexican Olympics. He came home one of the 6 best athletes in the world. He was also a physician, and even when competing overseas, he took time to care for the sick. In 1982, he founded the Gay Gamers, who fight the cliches of both athlete and homosexual. He married Sarah Lewinstein and had a daughter, Jessica. And finally, even as the disease attacked him, he tried to teach us about AIDS. Through the United Way's AIDS Crisis Fund, the Shanti Project, the San Francisco AIDS Foundation, and others can continue Tom's teaching and help those who have AIDS live and die with dignity. AIDS destroys the best among us, the doctor, soldier, athlete, and father. In Tom Waddell's case, it killed them all in one. Located on the Seminole River, Jemwania is a farming village of about 1,000 people during World War II. And it is during the war that this 19th century chateau becomes a shelter for the needy children of Belgian soldiers. Named for the Queen Mother of Belgium, Queen Elizabeth, the chateau now becomes a place of secret refuge for Jewish children, a special place in the life of 10-year-old Paul Schwarzbart.
I arrived in Germany in the morning and I was picked up. I hadn't thought about that for years.
The Jewish boys aged 5 to 14 begin arriving in March of 1943. They are overseen by 30 teachers and monitors and by a handful of nuns from the Order of the Sisters of Charity.
In the morning, we would be having classes with these various teachers who would try to maintain our education. And in the afternoon, we played. We went out in the woods as scouts, and we built our huts, and we had our scouting games.
They all learn about getting along, about living with other human beings. Paul becomes a Cub Scout leader.
There I was. Proud as can be, probably the shortest among them. Along with Bud Joyce, my mentor, and walking almost side by side with him, I remember always gave him such a good and proud feeling.
With Paul's father lost to him, 23-year-old teacher Paul Joris becomes one of the most important people in young Paul's life.
He said that when I arrived there, I seemed lost and very sad. He talked to me, and it just clicked. And that one person extending his hand to me, I think made all the difference. It made some of the loneliness disappear, some of the fear. I have an enormous love for that man.
The home is administered by Emile Taquet, a retired Belgian Army officer, and his wife Marie, a couple with no children of their own.
Every night she would tuck every and each boy in his bed and kiss him goodnight. And I remember how he waited for Mama Taquet to come out. We wouldn't go to sleep, and she would detain until she had kissed us goodnight.
Though the chateau is in a remote corner of the Ardennes forest, German troops are a constant threat. Other safe houses in Belgium are discovered, and their children and benefactors arrested and sent to death camps. One early morning in July of 1943, truckloads of Nazis with machine guns pulled up to the chateau and began to search its rooms and hallways.
I was so frightened that I wet my bed. We were on thin straw cots. This went right through and dripped onto the floor, where it was audible. And I remember two of the German soldiers hearing it and looking under the bed, and then one laughing and the other saying, this kid just peed in his pants. And they thought very good-naturedly, this was very funny. All they had to do was throw back the covers and it would have been the end of fun.
One of the monitors, the one nicknamed Mouton, is taken away, presumably to his death. But by some unexplained miracle, the boys are spared. Hiding at the chateau means that Paul must take on a Catholic identity. All the Jewish boys do. Paul is baptized. He takes Holy Communion. He even becomes an altar boy.
And believe it or not, it was a very good altar boy, because this was not an act for me, for any of us, I think. We lived what we did, and the Our Father and the Hail Mary were learned, in one session as I listened to everyone repeating them, because we had to utter these prayers constantly. We had to say grace, and I became a very good Catholic, which I suppose is being a good Jew, since Jesus was a Jew.
As the months pass into next year, Paul falls into a routine that offers some semblance of tranquility. The home becomes a place of beauty and warmth.
And there is nothing in these walls associated with sadness, whatever may have torn us up inside, had nothing to do with this place. And so as I look at these walls, I just feel peaceful.
The land was made this morning on the coast of France by troops of the Allied Expeditionary Force. The hour of your liberation was approaching.
By September of 1944, the Allies were in the process of pushing the Germans to their own borders. In the afternoon of the 8th, soldiers from the American 28th Infantry Division encountered German troops in Gemwine. The skirmish extended to the grounds of the chateau.
And there, my friends and I stood out there with bullets literally whistling by and shells exploding, too dumb to take shelter, not really caring about it. And I think even the teachers, the monitors, were just as much in awe of what was happening and were watching with us and forgot to tell us to get back in. And here came the jeeps really with their antennas, which we thought were fishing poles, and the boys got out and stood out in the open, shooting back.
By late afternoon, the encounter is over. Americans moved the Germans into further retreat. The village of Gemwine is liberated. So is the children's home of Queen Elizabeth. All 83 Jewish boys survived.
For what it did for us, it was an immense fortress. A refuge, a place of learning, a place to grow up.
Now at 11 and a half, Paul receives permission from Madame Taquet to leave the chateau. On October 30th, he says goodbye, and with Pope, his only companion, sets out for the old Brussels neighborhood in search of his mother.
She always said that she did not want to give up this apartment because that was the one place where my father knew that he could find her, and I too, after I went away, I would come back to that. And that's why she said she stayed. But she lived in fear throughout the war, every minute.
On a familiar street, hope becomes reality. After almost 2 years, Paul finds once again the soft embrace of his mother.
When I saw my mother at a distance, I recognized her, of course, immediately, and she, me, and we start running toward each other, almost like in a movie. And I was calling out Mutti, which is what I called her. And one of the first things I said to her was, "Oh God," in broken German, "I was so homesick for you." Let me One of the things she said to me was that, we can wait for Papa's return together. So we started waiting and inquiring, filling out forms, trying to find out where he was and when he would be coming home.
There were 2 rolls of bodies stacked up like portrait. They were thin and very white. Murder had been done at Buchenwald. God alone knows how many men and boys were lying there during the last 12 years.
The journey of Paul's father ends in the concentration camp of Buchenwald, where Nazi cruelty survived even while its army crumbles. It is here that Friedrich Schwarzbart dies. There is an epilogue to the story of Friedrich Schwarzbart, and it is found here in the Brussels office of the Belgian Ministry of Justice. In a series of rooms, Nazi records, row upon row, detail ledgers, the cold arithmetic of life and death.
These are all the Jews who were deported out of Belgium.
Paul comes here out of curiosity, looking for his personal history in the code books of the underground. The records keeper Claire Beret helps him discover other information. Since 1960, Paul has known for certain that his father is dead, but it is only here and now that he learns how he died.
Yes, here's my father. He entered Buchenwald on the 10th of February 45, coming from the camp of Grossrosen, with his number 124951. Nearly died there 1 week or 8 days later. It says died when I was on the way, they don't say murdered. This is so chilling that there are just no words for it. I know all these things existed to see your own father's life. Little slips of paper from German registers. That's all the information. It's incredible. Oh my God. How I remember him. Told this Marshal, dear Lord, he was part of the death march. Perhaps it's as if both his feet were frozen. And perhaps sepsis means that he developed blood poisoning or something.
The cold arithmetic of life and death. Friedrich Schwarzbart, tattoo number 124951, died of blood poisoning at 5:30 on a Sunday morning. It was February the 18th, 1945, less than 2 months before the camp's liberation. He was 42 years old.
Is there ever a time when I don't think about my father? No, there really isn't. I think about him very, very, very often. He's always with me.
In the slums of Southeast Asia, there are children with pale or black skin, blue or brown eyes, fair hair or dark. They are despised by their own societies, nicknamed the impure or the half people. Yet these children are half American, and they're persecuted because of it. I'm Jean Stapleton. Please help these children. Contact the Pearl S. Buck Foundation. Thank you.
I am 92 years old, but I never thought I'd live to make it. Now then, they tell me I'm going to make it to 100. Now, I use the van mostly for grocery shopping because I'm too healthy to go to a doctor, so I use the van for groceries. I feel that I've really taken care of myself now, which I couldn't do if it wasn't for the van. My grandson from Kansas City came and I fed him avocados and crab louie. They were sitting at the table eating, and one of the boys looked up and he said, "Gran, you sure do set a good table."
When you give to the United Way, you support the Nevada Human Needs Center.
It's very important for me to stay in this house. I'm very happy here, and I'm not afraid.
And the center provides people like Bert Seeley with some pretty important things, like the freedom to get out.
Of course, I was born in Missouri, and I'm as independent as a hog on ice.
And the freedom to come home.
I don't know you, but I love you.
You know, this was a big battlefield.
More than 4 decades later, the chateau is alive with familiar voices again.
Oh, God.
Paul and the others have returned to remember.
You've come a long way for this.
On this warm Sunday afternoon in the Ardennes, they've come from their homes across Europe and America. With loved ones, 44 of the boys returned for a reunion. For many, including Paul, it is the first time they've seen each other since their childhood days.
These are human beings that, even though we have not seen, for the most part, one another for 45 years, we walk up, and time means absolutely nothing. You embrace one another, you kiss, and the glow is so profound, so special.
His beloved teacher, Paul Joris, is here. Now 67 years old, he is a professor in Brussels.
Oh, God.
Madame Taquet, now 87, and a widow. And here's Mouton, the monitor who was taken away by the Nazis. The boys all thought he was killed, but he is alive, and he is here. They all return to see each other and hear words that acknowledge the purpose of this day. Words that bring back those years of sacrifice and fear and death.
C'est à travers les mains de ces filles que la résistance perd.
David Inomoki, who organized the reunion, entered the chateau on his 5th birthday. He says returning today is like finding a family he had lost.
And there's no border, no difference between those boys. They are all the same. Little boys said they had grown up now.
One of the people who saved the little boys is 66-year-old Andrei Herskovici. A Brussels school teacher in 1942, she became alarmed as her Jewish pupils vanished one by one during the Nazi deportations.
I would ask why they were missing, and they told me they were taken away last night by the Germans. They went to a camp. And then I told myself it was impossible. We cannot stay like this doing nothing.
Others shared her feelings. In the same year, the Jewish Defense Committee was established to save Jews from extermination. The committee contacted authorities in the Belgian government who were sympathetic. They agreed to help provide secret havens like the Children's Home of Queen Elizabeth. Andre joined the effort and, through the Belgian underground, began the dangerous job of shepherding children.
And it was very dramatic when I left with the child, and the mothers were begging me and kissing me and were asking me, tell me where the child is going to go. And I said, no. Afterwards, when I was in the street, I cried, but at the time it was hard for the mothers, and many of these mothers never saw their children again. That's what you should know.
The children of Gemonia on this day also came to honor those who helped send them. They are called righteous Gentiles, non-Jews, who saved Jews during the war. Israel's ambassador to Belgium presents diplomas and medals to 31 of those who saved the 83 Jewish boys from the Nazis. Madame Taquet is among those honored. Paul Reese was also recognized, the man young Paul so admired and respected that he too became a teacher. After the ceremony, mentor and student talk about the past.
Paul remembers when I arrived in Germany. With new shoes. You had new shoes and it was very difficult for you to walk. Do you remember? I remember that because, you know, Mommy had to equip me for going away forever. Yes. So I had good shoes on. We became good friends. Yes, and then you became my godfather. In the true sense of the word.
He was not a rational boy. I had some pupils in my classroom who were very clever too, but who only worked with their heads. And Paul had also a very big heart. You understand what I mean? That's what that was Paul. And because he had a very big heart, his eyes reflected what happened in his heart and in his body.
On the way to the banquet, Paul met another dear old friend, 73-year-old Father René Ardet, the priest who made Paul an altar boy.
He was our father with a capital F, and he taught us catechism, and he taught us about values, and he taught us about dignity and how to become a human being that matters.
Father Ardet, now with cancer, was advised by doctors not to attend the reunion. But he came, he says, because doctors don't always understand about God. At the final event of the day, 250 people gathered for an afternoon of informal celebration. Here in the church banquet hall, they'll share food and drink and complete their renewal of the past. They sing to remember the love of the grown-ups who saved them and the comradeship of the other boys. They sing to declare their own survival. They sing to forget what they can never reclaim, the dreams that were shattered on the night of the broken glass. They sing to celebrate one small, undeniable, and particular triumph of good over evil, a conspiracy of love between men, women, and children with two faiths, but one God.
It was a Christian prayer, and we sang this, thanking the Lord to give us food for that particular day. Yes, and we were thankful. It was a Christian prayer, that's all.
Nous aimerions porter un toast à la santé de Madame Taquet.
A renewal of the past. In this hall, Madame Taquet is surrounded by people she cared for and loved so many years ago. In all, she was responsible for 125 Christian and Jewish children, as the family had had its normal problems. When the children arrived, they brought very little with them. So Madame Taquet had to make certain there was enough food, clothes, proper instruction. There was not much time to always worry about the Germans. Of Paul, she remembers a young boy who was well-mannered and educated. Madame Taquet and her husband called him the Little Prince. She had great affection for him.
Sometimes I say to myself when I look at you, if the outcome had permitted, you would have been my child. You had nothing to worry about. Nothing would have happened to you.
A renewal of the past. Men who have become doctors, artists, businessmen, husbands and fathers, stand together on a stage and declare with great pride their names, the real names they were forbidden to say while they were in hiding here.
Je m'appelle Paul Extine.
And Paul pays tribute to the family whose name he borrowed. Andre and George Extine are dead, but their 3 children remain close to Paul.
My feelings for all of them are total love and respect. They are indeed all members of my family in the deepest sense of the word.
As the hours grow short, they look to exchange a few more pictures, memories, details, to discover and to show how it all turned out. As though the past was close by, this afternoon of reunion allowed each of them to reaffirm the human capacity for love.
I still love my children the way I loved them at the time. Does a mother ever forget her children? I had adopted these children, and I kept this affection for them. And I would do for them now what I did back then.
I was at the same time very happy to see all that people, and at the same time I was a little sad because it's past is no more. Past is no more. Little by little it became more and more emotional, and after a little while it was almost overwhelming. Because all the memories of those days and what I kept seeing all of us as kids again. All for one for all.
So for one day they've been together again, and now that day is coming to a close. They tell each other we must meet again. And on this one day they have celebrated together what they have celebrated apart for the past 4 decades, their own survival. They have returned to the place and the people where that survival was secure. They have shown what they have made of that gift they were given here. A journey begun in fear and completed in triumph.
It's wonderful to be alive. It's wonderful to be alive.
Hitler's dream of a 1,000-year Reich ended in 12 years. Of the 6 million Jews who were murdered, 1.5 million were children. 15 of Paul's relatives were exterminated by the Nazis. Fulfilling a legacy offered in his youth, Paul has been a teacher for 32 years. He is also a proud husband and father. His wife Gail is a concert violinist, and they are the parents of 2 sons, Mark 14 and David 13. A close, nurturing family, they continue the religion of his ancestors. In 1969, having remained faithful to her husband, Sarah Schwarzbart died.
Would you like to sit down?
Okay, I think I maybe should. Well, yeah, a couple of things I want to say.
Okay, let me give you the microphone.
No, the mic is there. They can hear me. Yeah,
Okay.
you can hear me, right? Loud and clear. Comes from the diaphragm. It comes from all those years of teaching and projecting my voice. You know, this film was made in '88, so the times and so forth are 20 plus years ago. Lost a few things, a little hair, mustache. I really want to pay tribute to Ken Swartz, who was SWARTZ, who works for KRON. And he was the cinematographer who shot all that footage and then spent from May until November editing it and putting out the product that you just witnessed. I don't see this version very often.
I forgot to tell
That's okay, isn't it?
I think the commercials were great, and it's usually
Yeah.
the vehicle that
Well,
they watch.
what was great about that was that they were not commercials.
Right.
You see, I think it was the vice president of Channel 4 called me before this was released, and he said, "We think this film is too important to commercialize, so we're not going to sell it. But we'd like to get your permission to do public service announcements." It's your film, I said. Well, of course, you have my permission. And I think it was extraordinarily in good taste and very, very well done. for these interruptions. So they sent a crew to Europe, they did all that, and so forth, and then they would not sell it or make a profit, which, you know, is amazing to me, because we think that these stations are so crass, and obviously that's not true. You know, and, Ken always wanted them to actually sell it so that we could do more things with the film, but they wouldn't. It's there somewhere. And you know, we saw the copy that I made from my own beta copy that I recorded when it actually played. You know, and then I transferred to a DVD, and that's what you just watched. Pretty good, actually. You know, those beta machines are fantastic. Very good. Anyway, Ken shot, you know, hours and hours of film, and then cut it all down to these 57 minutes, which is also, I think, phenomenal. That they were able to do that, and then they, you know, and worked with the sound, and the soundtrack, which was just recorded live and without any continuity, you know, because he wrote the script and so forth while he was editing. There was none. He was just shooting. It was really, is this interesting to you? Mm-hmm. Yeah, because young people are usually interested in filmmaking and so forth. But when I didn't meet Ken until the airport. So he told me, you'll recognize me because I'm a company. And I didn't quite know what that meant. He meant an enormous Betamax camera, which he was carrying, which he never let out of his sight. You know, the man had a seat on the plane next to him for his camera. It's a fact. And you know, without it, what would he have done? You know? And then when we got there and the luggage was being unloaded in my little case and trunks and stuff for him, because the Betamax cassettes were 20 minutes long. And he shot hours and hours and hours, at least 20 or more. You said much more. And so, you know, divide each one by 3 or multiply that, you know, so you see trunks of film. And this is not digital, you know. Anyway, I just wanted to pay tribute to him and mention, you know, what a fabulous job that man did, following me everywhere with that enormous camera. And it took me a while to realize that he was shooting really me, you know, because the idea was he was going to make a documentary about this reunion. But as it turned out, he knew all along, without telling me, that I was the subject. He couldn't have picked better or more photogenic or whatever. Yeah, I don't suffer from shyness. You know, one of the joys of my life is that I was in the classroom for 45 years. You can't do that if you're shy. You know, the young people will eat you. In the old sense of the word. And so, I forgot where I was going with this. Not that it really, not that it really matters. But the film got 3 Emmys. Bob Jimenez got 1, Ken got 1, and Lee got another one. He was one of the writers. Bob Jimenez was the anchorman at Channel 4 in those days. And the second version, they just changed the narrator and changed a few things. Not the film itself, but in the ending and so forth, to mention that I had lost my dear wife for a guy. Things like that. Here we end with my mother's death. It's really interesting because I'm writing another book, you know, to follow this one, because people are saying, well, what about what happened after? So I'm writing that one, and today I reached the point where my mother died. You know, my mother died in 1969. So we were just talking about that, of course. I thought that I should give you a chance to ask your questions or make your comments. You could have a dialogue, whatever pleases you. fill in gaps. There are many, many gaps. One gap that was not, one thing that was really not made clear in the film is that until 1988, when I went to the reunion, or before going to the reunion, I thought I was the only Jewish boy in that school. In the film, the narration is such that you think that I knew all along, right? Well, I didn't. I thought I was it. The fact that I was the only one baptized, that is a fact. Madame Taquet, as she said, was that she and her husband, they were childless, they wanted to adopt me after the war, if the situation permitted. She never said it to me, because the moment I found my mother, that part of her future disappeared. What a lady. What an incredible lady. She became my godmother when I was baptized, and Paul Maurice, my godfather. And until after the liberation, I called her Madame Taquet, and I called him Monsieur Joris, or by his totem name, Akela, after Kipling, as a scoutmaster. Because how did I explain to all the other 124 little Catholic boys that I'd just been baptized? Right? I had to arrive there as a Catholic, so how did they become my godparents? You understand? So, but after the liberation, I wasn't afraid anymore, and I could call them godmother and godfather, which are two beautiful words to call someone. These were Christians who really deserved the term. They really lived their faith. I don't mean by going to church, but by really living what Christian faith is. And sometimes people ask me, perhaps you were going to, how did I cope? Well, what's the big difference? Except I had to do it there in Latin, right? We pray so and so forth in Hebrew or in the language of the country. They both work. I had to learn Latin to play the role the way I was supposed to. One of the big things that really weighed on my little 10-year-old shoulders was that I understood. I was the only Jew. If I were caught, 124 Christian boys would die too, most likely, plus 30 teachers. You understand? That's how the Germans work, So I was very careful to hide my true identity. And so I lived those 2 years as a Catholic Belgian. The Belgian part was easy because my French was so good. Everything I did was so good. You can't be teaching for 45 years and not be good. It's a wonderful profession. And you see me with a lovely lady, my wife, who happens to herself be a teacher. She only taught for 35 years. The fact that she's so much younger than I may account for that than I am. So together, 80 years of teaching, not too shabby. Huh? And that's how we met after the mother of my children died. And it just so happens that Sherry's husband had died and we met. We've been married 11 years now, which is unbelievable and wonderful. The man should be so lucky. It's not given to many even once,
So, Paul, I know you're very proud of your sons.
Oh, are we
Tell
proud
them
of
a
our
bit about
sons?
them.
What would you like? Oh, tell them. Okay, you saw these two good-looking guys, right? As young men. Okay. Well, the older one today is, in 15 days, he will be 38. Yeah. He's so young to have a 38-year-old son. And his brother David in June will be 37. Time marches on. they missed their mother.
You saw the bear's baby.
Yes, Mark just had a baby, which there he is with his lovely wife, Catherine, and isn't that baby delicious? They call it Jean-Paul. Guess where the Paul came from? They actually call him JP, the light of our life. He's grandchild number 6 because David, the young one, you should know that he's a career Navy man. And you know about those sailors. He's a submariner, so he's away for like 6 months and he comes home. I guess you draw your own conclusions, obviously. Right? Okay. So a lot of sadness, a lot of happiness, and I call it the toboggan or the roller coaster of life. You know, you don't know what's around the corner. You have to live for the day, remember the past, and look forward to the future without making it everything. No. Okay, I said I was going to answer questions and so forth, and I kept right on talking. Yes, please.
Were you able to keep any photographs of your family when you were in hiding?
Oh, was I able to keep photographs of my family? No. I left my mother with the little backpack that the Germans required we have by the door at all times. So when I said my mother got my clothes together, really they were together in the little backpack. Her backpack and my backpack. The one thing that she did was to take the star off my chest and off the clothes, because we had to have a big star. And the new shoes that they're talking about, they just wear my good shoes, my second pair to wear for holidays and so forth. So they didn't get much action, and so walking from the train all the way through the forest and to the village hurt. Plus the fact that I was starving and scared, all these things, which make a heck of a package for a 10-year-old kid. But when I think of how my mother must have felt, I know it's nothing.
I wasn't clear at the film after the town was liberated and it said you went back to find your mother. Were you alone? Completely alone? And
yeah, it's good to know the boss, right? And since the principal of the school was also my godmother, I said, "Godmother, I want to leave." And she said, "Okay." Maybe not in those words. And so I made my way all the way from the Ardennes forest to Brussels, and walking the streets, as you heard, I saw my mother walking the other way. And we ran toward each other about a block. And you don't usually get accompaniment, but that was pretty good. So, you see that in the movie, you say, "Oh yeah, whoever wrote it had good imagination," right? It's the truth. It's the truth. Yes?
how did your mother avoid getting shipped off to a concentration camp period?
Very good question. What can I tell you?
It was just luck?
Pardon?
It was just luck?
Don't say just luck, but luck. Yes, definitely. Everything was luck. Bad or good. I mentioned you walk down the street and they grab somebody. There's the person right next to you, not you. It's bad luck for him or her and good luck for you. Or somebody gets shot down. That's not you. It's just dumb luck. I say dumb because you have nothing to do with it. Or if you're a real believer, the hand of God, fate. That's really it. I happen to believe. Luck. I have absolutely no recollection of the time of saying goodbye at the school and seeing my mother in the street. And yet, that was a long way to go by myself. I don't remember anything anything about it. Someone suggested I go through hypnosis, and I said, what for? What's going to add to my life? You know? I left and I got. Right?
Did you and your mom ever talk about the years that you spent apart from each other?
That's another wonderful question. My mother and I speak about the years that we spent apart, not until much later in the United States. At the time, it was survival, you know, even after the war, you had to survive. It was survival, and thank God we're both here, and let's wait for Papa to return. And we didn't discuss anything. As a matter of fact, I often tell the anecdote that one of the nuns gave me one of her prized possessions to show how much she loved me, and she took the big cross, her big cross, off and gave it to me. You know, that had to have been what she had of the most precious, right? And I attached it to my belt. And later in the United States, my mother said when she saw me, there was this incredible joy of seeing her child. And then as she looked down, she saw a cross on my belt. And she said, it might as well have been a dagger through her heart. What had happened to me? You know, she never said a thing. She didn't belabor it. She didn't say anything about it. And when Friday night came along, she blessed the candles for Shabbat. And I went right back to where I'd been before I left, without any discussions, trials and tribulations, no discussions, no, you know, no whatever. But an extremely intelligent, wonderful lady, my mother. May she rest in peace. I hope she's with Dad. Or Papa. I never called him Dad in my life. And my sons call me Papa, which I like.
And their
Papa.
friends
I was
call
born
him
to be Papa. What, sweetheart?
Their friends call him Papa.
Yeah, all my, you know, Mark and Catherine's friends, you know, whom I see quite often, all call me Papa. It's terrific. It's terrific. David and his family, since he's in the military, he's always far away. You know, so we don't see our grandchildren very often. So this one's going to get awfully spoiled. You know, it's all Jean-Paul. The fact that it's my name has nothing to do. Yes.
When did you come to the United States?
I came to the United States in December of '48. So I've been here 63 years. How's my English?
Pretty good.
One thing that drives me absolutely up the wall is some strangers say, where's that accent from? I say, what accent? Get away. I speak American. It's not an accent. You know, 63 years, is that something? I was 15 when I came, and in a couple of months I'm going to be 79. But the year after that, God willing, 80. How can anybody be so young and turn 80? True. One of the miracles of life. You know, it's a very young life. I highly recommend. Huh?
He's in personal therapy.
I don't see that. Oh, back there, yes.
As your children were growing up, how did you explain your history to them?
Could you repeat that, please?
As your children were growing up, as your boys were growing up, how did you explain your background and your history to them?
I was always very, very open with our sons. And so, you know, I would always answer questions and tell them things. It's very interesting because when the film was being shown in November of 1988, to coincide with Kristallnacht, the boys asked if they could watch it in their room, on their own. They knew that their mother and I would be crying, right? So they watched it on their own. Afterwards, David said, you know, Papa, I know all the facts. to answer your question, but now I really understand the chronology. You know, for 14-year-old, that was pretty stupid then. My son. I throw these in just to make you smile so things don't get too heavy. You know? Yeah, right. But I don't think I finished answering the question about. I forget what the question was, but I knew I didn't answer it. Yeah, come in. Yes.
Hi. I wanted to ask you about the night when the troops came to the school and you had the unfortunate event that you wet your bed. Did you ever find out what the principal said or how miraculously they left and didn't do anything?
Did you hear? Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's another one of those miracles, you know, that can only happen in Catholic School. It was not meant to be the least bit funny. Nobody knows why they came. It was harassment. We know for sure, like 100% plus, that they were not looking for any Jewish kids, because all they had to do was look. Mm-hmm. You know, that's what I meant in the film when I said if they'd thrown back the covers, that would have been the end of fun. You know, they would have seen a circumcised penis, and that, in those days, that meant Jew. Nowadays, it does not mean that, because for health reasons, you know, many boys are circumcised, especially in the United States, you know, without being Jewish. And just think, if the Arabs are circumcised, you know, which is interesting since they were Arabs. Haven't thought about that. Wow! They also bowed to the cross on which hangs a Jew. None of that makes any sense, you know. It really doesn't. The reason they grabbed that one teacher, mouton, you know, mouton means sheep, for those of you who don't speak French, you know, because the teachers took on totem, like totem pole, you know, names as scout leaders, and he was a spy, which we didn't know. He was a real English spy. And I found out, I think, like 2 months ago about that. And he got panicky, which spies aren't supposed to do. He left his bed and crawled up on the roof to hide. Well, the dog smelled the bed and went and got him. You know, it was very foolish. They might not have bothered him because they weren't looking for him. He would not, at the reunion, he got probed a little bit. He would not talk about what happened to him. He was taken to prison, of course, concentration camps, not as a spy, he would have been shot or worse. He wouldn't talk about it, but the fact is he was at the reunion. And we couldn't possibly have been any happier than seeing that human being, you know. There was another, you know, you laughed about miracles. When the Americans liberated the village in October of 1944, since you're all historians, you know very well that they had landed in Normandy in June of 1944, right? Well, we didn't know that, we kids, because our teachers allowed us any subject of discussion, anything at all, except the war. That was absolutely taboo. And so we had no idea that the Americans were in Europe and making their way, okay? So when they appeared, we thought that they had fallen from heaven. And that it was a miracle, that they simply dropped from heaven. You know, because we knew how far away America was. And yesterday they were in America, and today they're here to save us. Angels. You know, and with the education that we were getting, this was absolutely believable, you see. I think it's beautiful. I think that for children to have that kind of innocence in the middle of a war is incredible. And the river behind the Sumwa, you saw the lovely river behind the school, big fish. And so when we saw the jeeps with those things moving in the wind. We thought they were fishing poles because they were about our river. I've never seen antennas before, or since. No. You see one of these cars, but they're attached, they're not bobbing right there. Anyway. Okay, next. Yes?
How difficult was it to find information on family members after the war? And you said you were waiting for your father quite a long time. So
Yeah.
what organizations were you trying
Well,
to...
there were many organizations, the Red Cross for one, you know, many Jewish organizations. One of the things that I shall never forget is the panels, the boards, blackboards and others, filled with little slips of paper that people pin up all over town. Have you seen so-and-so? Last address and so forth. Heartbreaking. You know, I'll never forget all those slips of paper. And in 1991, there was an international hidden children's convention in New York City, which I attended. 91. How far is that from the war? And the boards were up with old slips of paper. People were still looking for other people. I don't know which hurt more, that right after the war or in 1991, but it just twisted my guts. And everybody was looking for somebody. There was a rather naive outlook. I don't know if Hans had the same experience, but because, you know, experiences differ and sometimes they're exactly the same. People disappeared every day, you know, they were taken away. And we thought now that the Germans were gone, it would reappear. Nobody had heard yet immediately after the war about the concentration camps and the deaths and the horrors. You know, we thought, gone, now come back. Yeah, didn't happen. Some of my family, by the way, this film was made, it said that I lost 15 family members, but reality is 66. Family members.
I just wanted to know what brought you to America.
Shit.
Why did you come to America?
It's true. I always tell the truth. That was a low blow. Huh? What brought me to America? Do you mind if I sit down? My foot's beginning to give out a little. I took a tumble down a big set of stairs about 5 months ago, and it takes a long time to heal. Anyway, my parents wanted to come to America. That's why my father kept looking for those visas, you know. They had made plans that we would come to America to rejoin one of his sisters. He had 4 sisters. He was the man of the family since his age of 12. When he was 12, which was 1914, because he was born in 2, my grandfather died. He was killed as an Austrian soldier in the First World War. He fell right at the beginning, immediately. Well, my grandmother was left with 5 children, one of whom was my father. He was 12 years old, but he was a male, so he had to go to work and help his mother rear his sisters. That's how it was, you know, very natural. So they adored him and he adored them, of course. One of them had gone to what was then known as Palestine. One of them had come to America, and they wanted, my mother and my father wanted to join that sister in America and her husband. The other 2 sisters went up in smoke. There was literally nobody left at all. So that's why we persisted. in the idea of coming to America, not totally selfishly or blindly, because my mother was convinced for many years until we really found out that my father was dead. She was convinced that he was alive and that where would he go? He would go to America where he and his wife had planned to be after the war, so that's where he would go. It's very logical. Now I've got to tell you what town this was that they lived in. Are you ready? Petaluma. You've heard of it? It's not all that far from here. Probably my biggest culture shock coming to America was going to Petaluma. Did I say something, Mike? Did I say something funny again?
We'll go into it later.
Okay, I look forward to it. And the other thing was that my parents were very, very, very vested in education. And I was going to the University of California. That was the plan, can you believe it? But going by maps at the time, they thought it was in San Francisco. That little bay didn't show up. It was amazingly interesting. We're happy to know that I made it there and taught for them for 26 years, and so you're smiling, aren't you? So there. I hope they are. They never saw their grandchildren. Oh, all these, but I don't dwell on the negative. I try not to. I try to tell you about all the wonderful people who helped me stay alive and how we have to look forward to all the good people in this world and always be thankful. But remember, the lesson is also when you see something that you think is wrong, learn to say no. No, I accept. If these young people have done that, I wouldn't be here. Many others wouldn't be here. Some of you wouldn't be here. Maybe the world wouldn't be here. Thank you for listening.